There's an awful lot of buzz about this guy. Dr. Rand Paul and his family live in Bowling Green. Senator Paul has practiced medicine, performed eye surgery for nearly 2 decades. Of course, he's the third of 5 children born to Carol and Ron Paul. And there is a lot of buzz about this guy. Let's welcome on our guest line Senator Rand Paul, who is, if CPAC's results are correct, it's president-to-be Rand Paul. Hey, Senator, how you been?
Well, let's don't jump the gun now, Mike.
Well, a lot of us are pretty excited about you emerging from the ashes with a very solid message. I mean, you had to have, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the CPAC gathering. What a great group of people all in one place, huh?
Well, I tell you what, 2,000 young people, there's a lot of energy. You look out in the faces in the crowd, and they're all in their 20s. And, it was that kind of youthful energy that got Barack Obama going. And so what you need is that kind of youthful energy on our side. And I think it's going to have to be a little bit different face than we've given them in the past. And it's not just about how old the candidate is, but it's about how old the ideas are, or how refreshing the ideas are, and how we try to expand our base rather than contract our base.
Almost on cue, Senator John McCain came along and mocked so much about what this Tea Party believes in and the grassroots American effort that I so applaud, and he chided the appeal, anybody appealing to college kids who are libertarians in their dorm rooms. I thought, man, there's our problem, Senator. I mean, there's an establishment Republican, frankly, and I, like everyone, I respect Senator McCain's service to his country and all, but to mock the effort to reach out. Do you know how many young people admire Ron Paul's message and Rand Paul's message? I've said from day one, stop mocking what is obviously a pretty exciting process, and that's seeing a lot of young people finally come to the Republican Party.
Well, yeah, uninviting people to your political party is not a good strategy, for winning elections. The other thing is that when you argue on a principle that's above and beyond sort of someone's, name calling, I was arguing against the nomination of John Brennan, but not so much about him, but about the principle of that if you're accused of a crime in our country, you get your day in court, you get a jury trial, you do get a lawyer. And it was a principled argument. You can disagree with it, but at least it was on principle. But that attracts young people. It also attracts independents. And I can't tell you how many people from the other side came up and said, we appreciate you standing on principle on this.
Reasonable people can disagree. Unreasonable people attack. I want you to listen. If you haven't heard it, this is Bill Kristol and of the Conservative Weekly Standard. Here he is on a Fox News Channel appearance reacting to your speech and your message at CPAC.
It's the GOP of old, the GOP of Reagan and Bush, and yes, McCain, even though you're not allowed to say his name, I suppose, to conservatives these days, on foreign policy. They were right about national security. The problem with the Obama administration isn't that it's pursuing the war on terror too aggressively, using too many drones, threatening to kill Americans, sitting at Starbucks. The problem with the Obama administration is that it's too weak abroad, and that is very dangerous for us. So I believe the Republican Party will end up nominating a national security hawk, not a Ron Paul neo-isolationist.
A neo-isolationist is sort of what he was referring to your stance on our foreign policy. What do you say?
Well, the thing is, it's kind of funny about Ronald Reagan. I met him when I was 15 and still have a picture of him with our family when I was 15. And I still hearken back. I gave an hour-long speech, one of the longer speeches I've given recently at Heritage, talking about the foreign policy I envision. And a lot of it was from Ronald Reagan. So each side wants to say, oh, I'm for Ronald Reagan, I'm for Ronald Reagan. So we have this debate over what Ronald Reagan actually stood for. But the one thing Ronald Reagan stood for, in my mind, was when they say peace through strength, he did believe in peace, and he wanted peace. Now, he wasn't going to be a patsy. He wasn't going to have weak defenses so we would be attacked, but he had strong defenses in order to have peace. There are others, though, who want strong, aggressive military in order to engage in every civil war around the world. And one, I think it's a bad policy, but two, I don't think that our country is going to elect popularly elected leaders who are eager for war. And defending the country is one thing, always defending the country, never letting anyone attack us, punishing people who would attack us, yes. But our people don't want us in every civil war around the world, particularly sometimes when the wars are murky and where they're radical Islamists on the side of the people who we think are the good guys. And I think that's a confusing situation, like in Syria, where you have al-Nusra and elements of al-Qaeda on the side that we're supporting. My fear is they topple Assad, and we end up with something maybe worse in Syria.
Senator Rand Paul is our guest here on the Mike Gallagher Show. Let's talk about what the foreign press is now calling the liberty movement within the Tea Party, movement. I was reading an article in the UK Guardian, and they wrote that the liberty movement is now a bona fide wing of the Tea Party and an increasingly active part of the GOP. But its supporters are not 100% beholden to the Republicans either. That's a very important distinction, isn't it, Senator? That a lot of people who are Rand Paul supporters will say we can't always assume that the establishment party line is the way to go.
Well, I'd make it even more broad than that. The Tea Party wasn't about me or my dad necessarily. We've been part of it, but I would say that the Tea Party was a movement that was concerned about debt, about our children and the posterity of our country, the future of our country. But the Tea Party was also equal parts chastisement to both parties. You didn't find many people who were liberal Democrats in the Tea Party. They mostly voted Republican, but you'll find some that held their nose sometimes, and you find some that just sit at home sometimes because they say, we want Republicans to be true to the message of the Constitution, limited government, balanced budgets, and the future of our country is at stake. And so you will find that they're critical of Republicans. They were critical of Republicans who voted for the bank bailout. So the Tea Party, I think, has an honesty to it as a really a true grassroots movement.
Let's talk a little bit about your speech today to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, I should say. You are now the broad headline is Rand Paul embraces a path to citizenship with the millions of illegals who are here. I hear you laughing. I guess you disagree with that.
Well, it's kind of funny that that's the headline because I don't think we mentioned the word citizenship in the speech. I spoke for about 20 minutes and we never mentioned citizenship.
I mean, here's the Associated Press headline: Rand Paul endorses immigrant path to citizenship. The Associated Press got an advance copy of the speech, and it says that he declares, if you wish to live and work in America, then we will find a place for you. But you're
well,
right.
That's true. I did say that, and I'll say that again on your show. If you wish to work and be American, we will find a place for you. But what that means is, here's the real problem with immigration. Until we fix this, we're going to have this problem for the rest of our lives and into the next generation. The real problem is people who come and work in our agricultural fields, picking our crops. We gave 65,000 work visas last year, but 1 million people came to work in the fields. So that's where your illegal immigrants are coming from. You have to have a work visa program that works. So what I would do with the 11 million is I would not ship them home. Nobody is. They are here. We have people say, oh, you want amnesty? What we have now is de facto amnesty. So what I would say is the 11 million people are here living in the shadows who nobody is sending home and nobody's proposing sending home. Let's give them work visas. If they want to work, let's give them work visas. And so that's not citizenship. That's the ability to come out of the shadows, pay taxes, be part of the system, and be a part of our society. And then if they choose to become citizens, that's a different possibility, but it means they get in the line like anybody else from outside the country who wants to be a citizen.
But how do they get there? So is there ever a path for an illegal to become a U.S. citizen?
Well, the interesting thing is it's a pathway that already exists, though. So that's why our side needs to get off of just calling people names and saying they're for amnesty. What I'm asking is that they get put in the same line everybody else is. If you're in Mexico City right now and you want to be an American citizen, you would go in the same line as the people who are already here. The only difference from past proposals is the hardliners have always said, oh, they've got to leave, they've got to go home, we're going to send them home if they want to be citizens. That's never happening, and I think that is so harsh that I think the entire Latino population of our country thinks we don't like people with brown skin. And that was really the purpose of going to the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce this morning, is not so much the specifics of the detail, but to let them know we do care about their vote. We care about them as people. I talked about famous classical romance literature that I'm a fan of. It's about developing relationships, and it's not about putting people on a bus and sending them home or telling them they have to self-deport. So there is some kind of middle ground that can be found here, and the easy glib phrases of amnesty or pathway to citizenship is where we are all getting trapped and imprisoned by rhetoric, I think.
Well, the conventional wisdom is that you are emerging with these tough issues in anticipation of a 2016 presidential run. Now, if the Associated Press can get it wrong as badly as they did over your speech today, who knows what the conventional wisdom is or isn't. But what about that? What about your consideration for being a presidential nominee?
I want to be part of, the national debate and the national process, and I think the best way is to be out there. I want to be part of growing the party. I fear right now that we are becoming an ever stronger red state party, but we're losing all the battleground states. They're all going the other way. We're also losing the demographics in that, when Reagan won 49 states, he got about 30%, maybe 35% of the Hispanic vote, but they were 5% of the population. They're now 10%, and in 4 more years, the population will be 12% Hispanic. Texas will be majority Hispanic within 10 years. So the people who want the old ways of just acting like we are callous and don't care at all about the plight of these people, they're going to be the people who shrink the Republican Party. I want to be on the other side, and that's embracing immigrants as good people who are hardworking people. My great-grandfather came here from Germany, and it was during and between the wars, and they had to give up their German language and in their church because people hated Germans, because the Germans did start the wars over there. So our family knew what it was like, and I think we shouldn't be disparaging of people and their culture and their languages. I think all of that. I tried to talk about how the romance and the romance languages invigorate our society, and it's like, think of the Italians and the Irish and all the. You don't know any Irish, do you?
Nobody I can think of.
Yeah, but think of all what they bring to the melting pot is
right.
the part of the Irish culture, or Italian culture, or the Asian American culture, all that.
Yep.
The problem is we as Republicans have gotten depicted as people who just don't like a sort of xenophobia. That's sort of what Republicans have become to stand for. I don't think it's accurate, but unless somebody gets out there and starts saying, no, we love immigrants, we welcome immigrants, we want people who work, and we don't want there just to be a wide open welfare state. I still agree with what Friedman said. You can't have open borders in a welfare state.
Right.
So that's why the main proposal I put out today was actually the opposite of amnesty. It was that you have to secure your border in order to have any immigration reform.
So when our listeners see these headlines all day long, including, I might add, where I work as a contributor, Fox News Channel, that says you endorse a pathway to citizenship for illegals, you say that's just flat out wrong.
Well, it's not what I said. And what I did say is that I endorse normalization, or basically work visas for those who want to work.
Right.
And whether or not there's a pathway, the pathway would probably be the same pathway that exists now. So it's sort of a tricky question. Are you for a pathway? Yeah, I am, but I'm for the pathway that already exists.
And there already is a pathway, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not an easy one, actually. It takes a long time. I'm actually trying to make the process better for work visas, so everybody coming in has a work visa, but then also the process of admitting people into the country. For example, if Google wants you and you've got a job there, by all means, you should just come in immediately. They should send you a ticket in the mail that says you're allowed to come to our country and here's your visa, instead of making it hard, because it should be about employment. We don't want a lot of people who don't want to work, but people who have a job and are great on the computer and Google wants you, or one of the software companies wants you, there shouldn't be any impediment to that. Those people, otherwise we're going to lose them to Canada and India and China and all these other places.
I know how busy you are, and we greatly appreciate you visiting with us for a few minutes. I can't let you go without asking your position on a real hot-button issue right now. Hillary Clinton came out, and by the way, I love the idea, I love the vision of seeing a Hillary Clinton Rand Paul presidential debate someday. I like our chances. But nonetheless, Hillary came out yesterday and has endorsed same-sex marriage. It has been written that you're sort of formulating kind of a position in anticipation of maybe a 2016 presidential run. Where do you stand today on this very, very contentious debate?
I've always believed in, I just am old-fashioned. It's hard for me to believe in anything other than, the historic and religious nature of marriage. So I think marriage does have a religious nature to it, and I am sympathetic to that. I also think that it's a state issue, not a federal issue, and that, in our state we decided on traditional marriage, and we made it part of our Constitution. That being said, the libertarian part of me says, well, you know what? Adults should be able to make contracts, and if you want to say that your person who happens to be the same sex gets visitation or gets inheritance, there's no way the Supreme Court's ever going to rule that you can't have contracts. So for people to have contracts between themselves, I'm not objecting to. I just don't understand why we have to take away from, what I and many other social conservatives believe, which is the traditional nature of marriage. And so it's an issue that's not going to please everybody, nor a solution that pleases everybody, but I think as a society we're headed more towards something like that.
Well, it's like everything else of our time. It seems very complicated issues, and it requires thoughtfulness and reasonableness and a level-headed approach, and frankly, you offer all of that. Congratulations on your great appearance and time at CPAC, and Senator Rand Paul, keep fighting the good fight.
Thanks, Mike.
I appreciate you joining us. Senator Rand Paul joining us on the Mike Gallagher Show. 11 before the hour. Your reaction coming up at 800-655. Figuring out which way is easier. It was interesting to ask Rand Paul if he's running for president in 2016, and his non-answer was definitely an answer, wasn't it? Did you notice? He sort of went into kind of a monologue, went back to the illegal immigration debate and the issue of work visas and securing the border. That's a yes. In case you didn't know, that's a yes. Rand Paul today, I think very clearly, is planning to run for president in 2016. Now, a lot can change between now and then, but as of today, I think it's very clear we can all agree that he gave us an unqualified answer of yes when we asked him if he's running for president. Let's next time. Let's get an independent's reaction to Rand Paul. Craig, you're on the Mike Gallagher Show. How you doing?
Yeah, hi, Mike.
Hi.
I like your show.
Thank you.
As a former Republican, an independent, a fiercely independent, I believe that Rand Paul. I like Rand Paul. It's brilliant. The solution that he has to the problem is give work visas to people who are here. That solves two problems. A, they can't vote, but B, they pay taxes. Isn't that that's the crux of the whole problem? So it'll solve it, and they have to get in line if they want to be citizens. That's really.
I think it's a reasonable assessment and a conclusion to say we're not ever going to be able to deport millions and millions of people. It's a non-issue. It's a distraction. What we have to ask ourselves is, what do we do with the millions who are already here? And that's what Rand Paul is attempting to do. And frankly, I kind of like his solution as well. I read his speech and I like it very much.